night. There's still some soft drinks and some cold beverages in the fridge. I do see some new faces. Can I just get a show of hands? Who's first timer to Tech Night this evening? Okay, nice. That is wonderful. So, wonderful evening and a wonderful tech talk in store. Especially for those that are new this evening. It's wonderful to see everyone. For those of you that have not attended in the past, Central Maine Tech Night is a monthly evening event in the Mid-Maine region that brings technology experts and hobbyists together to network, learn, and share. We typically do meet on the second Thursday of the month, but we adjust when there's special opportunities. For more information and to follow us, you can of course find us online on Facebook at Tech Night, as well as centralmaine.org/Tech Night. I would like to thank our sponsors this evening. This free event is presented by Central Maine Growth Council and is sponsored by CGI, Thomas College's Harold Alfon Institute for Business Innovation. Valley Beverage is providing us with our delicious drinks this evening, as well as Bricks Co-working and Innovation Space here at 10 Water Street in downtown Waterville, Maine. In addition, I'd like to say hello to the folks watching at home. This Tech Night is being streamed live and can be viewed on Crossroads TV at 1301. Thank you to Crossroads TV, Chad and his team for streaming this evening. So, has anybody seen or maybe viewed the Greenlight Maine of KinoTek yet before? Okay, nice. So we have an awesome Tech Night, Tech Talk this evening. It's Tech and Human Movement by Justin Hafner, CEO and co-founder of KinoTek. 2019 Greenlight Maine Collegiate Champion, KinoTek is breaking ground in the field of kinesiology. Using virtual reality and motion capture technology, KinoTek's innovative software creates X-ray vision to improve athletic output and reduce the chance of injury. CEO and co-founder Justin will share the UMaine startup's journey to success, offering entrepreneurship lessons and technological insight. Please join me in welcoming Justin. And if folks that are standing, feel free to stand. Feel free to come sit up front, whatever is easier.
Cool. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. That was super good. So, yeah, I'm super excited to be here. This is my first ever Tech Talk. I really didn't know too much about Tech Talks until a couple weeks ago. So it's really exciting to be here. And, you know, KinoTek, we started, you know, we're less than a year old. So to have a lot of the opportunities such as this is like quite humbling and very rewarding. So super happy to be here. So by like a show of hands, in the crowd, like how many of you guys are like entrepreneurs? Okay, nice. How many like software developers? Strictly tech. Nice, nice. And then how many people are just here because it seemed like something to kind of do? Yeah, okay, cool, cool. Okay, so we got a little bit of everyone. That's awesome. So what I'm going to be talking about tonight is kind of how KinoTek started, our successes, I guess you could say, of how we kind of grew to get to the point where we are right now, and the lessons that I learned in the past 10 months. There's really nothing better than, I guess, learning by doing it and experiencing it firsthand, which is something that I've been able to do. So, yeah. So I thought I'd start out with a meme. So the world of a startup is something that I was never prepared for. So when we first started KinoTek, or when the whole thing started, which was, I guess the idea came about a year ago this month. It was sometime in July when we had like the first idea of KinoTek that, you know, maybe we could commercialize something. So what started us going, I applied for the Libra Future Fund grant, which I know some of you guys are applying to or have already applied to. And that was, you know, I didn't think we were going to get it. I didn't know how good this idea actually was. And the reason I didn't know how good it was is because I had no idea what business was. I was a big academic guy, so I actually thought I was going to start my PhD about like this time last year. So I was like, all right, you know, I'm going to do academia. It's going to be sweet. I'm going to maybe get some publications out of like a cool idea that I came up with. But it kind of shifted into something much bigger than that and how this could affect the greater good rather than just a paper that could be cited. So about in July, I was working at a virtual reality lab. It's called the VME Lab, Virtual Environment Multimodal Interactions. And prior to this, I never had any research experience or virtual reality or tech experience at all. I was really good at swimming back and forth. I was an athlete, and I didn't really embrace academics until I started working here. And working here, I learned a lot about the use of virtual reality and augmented reality and mixed reality and how immersion can help, on an educational standpoint, people retain way more information. They enjoy their learning experience. They're learning by doing. And at the same time, I'm finishing up my degree in kinesiology, and I didn't like the way that we were learning. So we're basically, I've said this on the Greenlight Maine pitch, so you guys have probably heard it a couple times, but we're given a piece of paper with 600 muscles on it, all the movements associated with that muscle, and so it's about 2,000 terms, and we're asked to memorize it in like 3 months. So it's quite overwhelming, especially for like 20-year-olds who are finishing up their college, midway through their college, and I knew there was a better way to learn. So I started talking with one of the developers at the VME Lab, and I was like, hey, is this like crazy idea that I have of seeing muscles being activated and used in virtual reality, to increase retention of skills and make harder, complex skills a little bit more digestible to the everyday user. And I talked to him, he's like, oh yeah, I think we could, maybe we could do something with that. I was like, all right, sweet, like what are you doing after work today? And he was like, oh, nothing much. I was like, all right, do you want to go meet up and we can try to develop this? We have a computer and we know how to code, and we can get 3D graphics from like anywhere online for free. So we're like, all right, yeah, why not? So we met up, and 45 minutes later, we had probably the ARM model that some of you guys have seen on our website of, just the blue and the red highlighting. We're like, wow, that was a lot easier than we thought. What do we do next? And that's when I had to learn about business. I remember I was up like that whole night because I was excited. I was like, oh wow, like we did the thing that I didn't think we could do. And I started diving into business. I just started reaching out to people or trying to find people who I knew were business oriented. And I ended up linking up with my old kinesiology professor. Well, not really professor, instructor. And he was in his classes when I first learned about muscle firing patterns and simple biomechanics. And I knew that he started a gym, so he kind of had an idea how to start a company and like how to run a business. So I was like, all right, I'll talk to him. So I talked to him, and I remember we sat down for 3 hours, and we came with this crazy plan. We're like, all right, let's do this. And then we met with Patrick Breeding, David Halamikoff, and the 4 of us became the co-founders of KinoTek. We saw like the background of each of our knowledge, I guess. We all could fill this gap of between business, software development, research, and commercialization. And we're like, all right, let's do this. So we started playing with this idea and we started developing it forward. We get the Lever Future Fund grant, and then we go to MTI for the cash match, and we got the cash match, and then we were able to get our first little bit of tech. And this little bit of tech, so for guys who don't know or haven't seen what exactly we do, this video will highlight a little bit better. So what we're able to do is track real human movement as it happens in real time. With gathering geospatial data, we're able to show where you're moving in empty space, the muscles that you're activating based off simple physics and biomechanics, to dictate potential strains of muscles, overcompensation. With the use of virtual reality, the athlete is able to see themselves if they wanted to. So you look in the gym and you see yourself in a mirror working out. That's not there just to flex. It's actually just there to make sure your technique is proper. So what we're offering is like a step beyond that for the athlete, and this immersion idea of being able to see yourself as you're doing it. It's something we like to call like mirror mode. So when you squat down, you'll see if you're activating the right muscles or if you're working out where you're supposed to be working out. So with the use of our motion capture sensors, so we license the hardware from Extends, and with the use of that, we're able to track where you are in empty space. Our algorithm is able to compress the biomechanics, so basically all the little numbers that you would see on a chart if you're an athlete and the coach says, hey, you need to stop doing that or you could hurt your knee. And they show you this chart with this number that's negative, like 0.39 or something, because that's like a bad angle. So you went past the angle that's bad. And we're able to track that, and we're able to compress it down to relay a visual representation of what's actually occurring to you in real time. And right now, it's just tracking your spatial data, and our algorithm is using it to show muscle firing patterns. But where we're going in the next couple months, we're creating a physics engine to essentially assess, force, go a step beyond simple biomechanics into something that's, I'm not going to say anything diagnostic tool because we're definitely not looking to go into FDA or anything, but something that can help with injury prevention, diagnosis of certain pathologies or movement patterns, and can show you months in advance potentially of a risk that you could be having by overcompensation. So you guys know like Kevin Durant, right? So big injury, right? Cost the Golden State Warriors $31 million next year because he's out all season, right? So he tore his Achilles, he ruptured his Achilles. Which seems like a crazy pathology, and all these all these not geniuses but professionals who have looked at biomechanics, understand movement. They've looked at this over and over again, and sometimes they say he had old injuries in the past that affected this. He's overcompensating, and that's totally true. He's also a genetic anomaly. He's like 6'11", and we can't even fathom that. But the way that he lands is just not necessarily not efficient, but he had to land that way for so long because he has such long limbs. But doctors, they'd see that and they understand that, but their biomechanic readouts basically look okay. Like he looks okay. There shouldn't be any issue. It's not something they could notice a while in advance. If our system was like implemented a couple weeks prior to him doing that, we could just show the way that he was landing with his toe slightly in or his foot slightly curved in, which would cause the Achilles rupture. We could just say, hey, think about the way you're landing, and you could not have that potentially happen because we're showing how, with his long limbs, the overcompensation that's happened with certain muscle groups compared to others, which can cause a lot of issues. So that kind of helps conceptualize it. So this is like my first time talking to people that can understand like software and tech really well, so it's really awesome that I can say geospatial data and everyone isn't freaking out. But yeah, so that's essentially what we're doing, and we're going into a couple different markets now. People ask like, oh, why aren't you going into physical therapy? Why aren't you going into education or military or ergonomics in the workplace? And we all, we totally know that those are all applications of our product. But one thing that we learned in the past year is honing in on one thing at a time. So we're only we were 4 guys, and then 5, and then 6, and now 7. And we all come from different backgrounds, and we all can do certain things really, really well. I'm definitely not the smartest person on my team. I tell this to everyone all the time. Like, I surrounded myself with people who are smarter than me, and that's how we can work so well together. But, so we're given all these markets, and it's really hard to hyper-focus for an entrepreneur or someone who's starting a small business, especially something that's really scalable across different markets and has huge, implications. So honing in on one thing is really, really tough. And the reason why we chose sports is mostly of the feedback that we've gotten before March. So it started out as, okay, we're going to prevent a bunch of injuries in the military and save the Department of Defense $700 million a year. And then it went from that into, all right, you know what? We're going to go into education because no one's retaining any of this information. And we did a survey, and it was over 70% of the people in kinesiology education, right, they're senior, they're already graduate, couldn't understand a simple muscle firing pattern. That's pretty scary, especially since they're going to go be working at the YMCA and training anyone who hires them, but they don't understand what's happening to them. So that was alarming. We're like, all right, education is it. But then we realized in the Department of Defense, all right, we're pretty young, and these guys don't really think we can do this, so why waste our time trying to do this? In education, it takes a little bit to get into education. You know, they're mostly nonprofits, you have to budget out, and they don't have the money that some other sports markets have, or the sports market has, I should say. And then it turned into the sports market because have you guys ever heard of Techstars? Yeah, so Techstars reached out to me randomly. I was at a swim meet, like wasn't prepared to get an email. And I got an email from Techstars that said, hey, can you come down to New York City by Wednesday at 6 p.m. And this is like Sunday night. And I was just like, okay, yes, I will be there. I'm 12 hours away, but I'll get there. And I get there and I'm sitting in this room full of companies, there's 40 companies there. And some of them were from Saudi Arabia. There was some from South America. And there was one from Japan, and then also some other ones from the United States. So people from all over the place. And I had no idea what to expect. I heard about Techstars. I thought it was really cool. And I'm sitting there, and he starts his pitch about Techstars and like what they can do for us, and how we can help. And we're there for the sports tech accelerator specifically, not just Techstars in general. And then he's like, all right, everyone, whoever introduced you or brought you here or invited you here, like you can go introduce them. So this is like the managing director of the sports tech accelerator specifically. So everyone flocks over to him. All right, 40 companies, people from around the world, not speaking English, and they're talking to him, and they're just like, hey, pitching their company, but they're all talking at the same time. And at this time, I am just over here, the kid from Maine, and it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna sit right at this conference table still and look at LinkedIn and learn everything about this guy. And I learned that he went to Bowdoin. So that was quite exciting. So I'm just waiting for him to be done with these guys. And then I see him, he's like, all right, I'm gonna get my coat. He's like, I'm ready to get out of here. And on the way back, I was like, hey, I'm from the University of Maine. I just drove 10 hours here to see you. And he's like, no way, I went to Bowdoin. And I was like, I knew that. And so we had that Maine connection, which is super great about this state. And he was like, oh yeah, come over here. And so he let me pitch to him. I was the only company that I got to pitch to one-on-one. And then I was the only company that got his business card. And I was like, all right, sweet. Like I have this guy's business card. Let's go. Like it came down here, worked out. And so I get his business card, and then I email him. He's like, all right, yeah, apply. The deadline is in 2 days. And I was like, okay, sweet. This 40-page application due in 2 days. That's simple, yeah. So do the application, go through the process. Oh, it's like a 2-month process. And then all of a sudden we got to the top 20 out of about 1,000 companies around the world in sports technology. And I was like, wow, this sounds like our niche. So we've been hyper-focusing on sports ever since. And we've made a lot of connections in the sports market, and they validated essentially. I mean, we still have a lot of validation to do, and the customer discovery never ends, which is what I'll talk to you about a little bit. But we were like, all right, clearly this is the pathway. They have a lot of money. They can help companies move really fast, and they're super innovative, and they just want to do the next big thing. So we honed in on sports, and since then it's been the best decision we made, and we probably have grown 5 times the size that we were 3 months ago, just because we focused in on one market. So that's like the most important thing from this part of the talk so far to take away, right? Is that focusing on one thing at a time, not trying to spread yourself out thin and take over the world if you're a startup company. Because I mean, I wish I could do that; it'd be pretty sweet, but it's just not feasible, and it's not going to be efficient, especially with software and all the little things that could go wrong in the code, and bugs and data storage and all these other things you need to worry about. But if you just focus on one thing at a time, it's way easier to focus and succeed. So now, I guess I'm an entrepreneur. And I realized this about like halfway through being an entrepreneur. And I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur until about 6 months of being an entrepreneur. I was like, I think I'm an entrepreneur. So I guess I'm an entrepreneur. And again, I was really academics focused. I was really focused on essentially, the next big thing that could help the greater good of the world, which I'm still focused on completely, but I was focused on it for different reasons than I am now. Now it's something that, all right, I can actually like put a dollar sign to how much of a difference I'm making to the world. Plus I could surround myself with people who are super awesome, and I don't need this high degree to do something really cool. And I realized this, and I was like, all right, so the only person that's in my way is myself. Sorry, mouse try. And so the next thing, once I realized I was an entrepreneur, was how to be an entrepreneur. But then I realized I was doing it all along. And all it is essentially being able to do the thing that other people potentially are afraid to, or it's not feasible, or they're too conservative to take that leap towards trying to commercialize something or doing something bigger. I've heard a lot of stories about people sitting the 9-to-5 job, and they want to oh yeah, I just need more experience doing this, and then I'll be able to do my own thing, and it'll be really cool. And I totally agree that you could totally do that, and you probably have more experience than me. Because every single day that I've been an entrepreneur, I've learned something about myself. I've learned something about being an entrepreneur. I've gained experience that I never knew was even feasible. I've read books on being an entrepreneur. I didn't actually read very many books prior to being an entrepreneur, so that was another thing. I was like, all right, I think I'm doing something. And so it was like this weird idea of, in this transformation in my life, of really academics focused and thinking of more of like a closed-minded rather than the broader picture of the world and the greater picture of like, wow, I'm the only person in my way, and I have a great team around me, and the only thing that's going to stop us is if we stop ourselves or get in our own way. And we failed like a lot through this process. So not realizing that as an entrepreneur, not like thinking about it in a different mindset. For months, so starting in October, we applied for an SBIR. Do you guys know what an SBIR is? Yeah, so Small Business Innovative Research Fund, I think. It's basically a way for the government to help with small businesses, commercialization, create innovation that's going to help benefit them. So we applied for an SBIR with the Air Force to mitigate these injuries in the military, which we were mentioning. And we got a letter, great tech, but you guys are 21, 22. No way you can do any of this. So that was like the first really like hard pill to swallow. And that was like 2-3 months into realizing I'm an entrepreneur. I was like, oh wow, like maybe I should take a step back. I'm thinking like way beyond, way bigger than what I could be or what I should be doing. And then I refocused, and I remember I took like a week off of just self-reflection and deciding what I want to do, because at this point I still could decide if I want to start my PhD or not. And at the end of the week I was like, okay, I'm 22 and I have 10 years essentially, in my opinion, that I could screw up. By the time I hit like 32, that's like, all right, maybe get a wife, kids, do the whole thing. But I have 10 years to screw up, and why would I waste that thinking that I wasn't ready to do the thing that I felt passionate about? So I took the leap and I went all in. And I remember I talked to my team about it, and they were fired up. And I remember I didn't take a job, and I did 6 months no pay KinoTek. And I mean, that was tough. And throughout this process, I failed again. So the reason why we didn't get into Techstars is we were too young, and we still didn't receive any seed investment. That was the other piece of feedback. So I was like, all right, that sucks, but weren't you guys supposed to be the seed investment to give us experience? But no harm, no foul. And I learned, okay, I need to think really critically about a lot of decisions, and I can't just essentially do something right away without thinking about it a little bit more in depth. But then on the flip side of that, I learned how to follow my gut. So people tell you, follow your gut when you have, I don't know, an idea or a decision to make. And that's what I basically have structured this around. So I follow my gut on every decision that I've made, starting at all these times of being told I'm too young. I shouldn't be an entrepreneur right now. I should go do the PhD and then get all this experience and then do the next thing. And then I can start a company, because then I'll be super experienced and ready to go. I mean, obviously, by not going the traditional route, which is, what a lot of people do, or the conservative route, I did have a lot of hiccups in the way, and it was definitely hard. It wasn't easy at all. But because of it, today, KinoTek has grown. Now we officially got we're negotiating our terms, and we're at over potentially a $2 million valuation, and we grew like that in 8 months. It took us to do that, and it was all based off of following our gut, not being afraid to basically take the leap of doing something untraditional that most people would do, taking failure for what it is and learning from it. It's not something that we would harp on. We didn't harp on, being too young. It's out of our control. We didn't harp on not having seed investment. We didn't harp on, all the potential pivots we had to do in the past 5 months to decide what market we're going to go into. No, but we worked together and we solved the problem, and we gathered all this feedback from the people who told us no, from the people that told us yes, what we were doing good, what we were doing bad. And we just made sure that we had this huge portfolio of feedback and comments and things to do next. And from that, we're able to sit down once a week and be like, all right, here's all the things that we were told this week. Yeah, what do we actually do here? And thinking about it critically and sitting on it and then making a decision based off how we feel about it, what makes sense essentially where we're at, how much money we have, what comes next. And it's really not something that you can teach in a classroom about being able to learn from these experiences and digest the information differently than what you've always been told to digest. So the biggest example that I like to give, right, is you take a test, and in college, high school, whatever it is, you get a bad grade. You may have to retake the class, or you may have to do another thing over again, or it's going to take you longer to graduate. But in the real world, you're not graduating. You're not reaching this goal, and then once you hit the goal, you don't know what to do next. You're just figuring out your life. Now, what we're doing as entrepreneurs is there's not a test, there's not something that we're trying to accomplish, but to just grow and do the thing that we need to do. It's nothing simpler or more complex than just accomplishing a goal and basically achieving it, or setting a goal and achieving it. People think entrepreneurship, running a company, or being successful is something that is you're lucky, or you did all the right things right, you're in the right place at the right time. But really, it just comes down to you were able to think about things differently than everyone else around you. So that's where I get this quote from. So this is one of my favorite quotes ever. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. So you have to trust the dots will somehow connect in your future. So people, you go online, you search this quote, people are going to say this huge in-depth meaning of what this means, being really philosophical. But really, what he's saying is people are really traditional, and they've done all the things that they were supposed to do, and they've done them really well. Not saying anything bad, but they stick to these borders. But if you take a step back, and then even a step back further, look at all these different markets and the things that they're doing, and the way things are being told, the way things are being taught, what are these traditional methods that everyone follows. And if you randomly are able to connect two of them, hence KinoTek, virtual reality and biomechanics, never really been done, you can do something really cool that everyone's going to be blown away about. But really, we just took as a team, all those existing things that have been out there that we've been told to do, or what has been done in the past of how to do it, went a step further and said, what if we just did this thing with this thing, and then tried it out and see what happens. And that's the biggest advice that I can tell anyone who wants to start a company. It's not, there you go. It's not something that is really hard and complex. And the reason why people fail at doing the company, from what I've learned in this short 8-month tenure of being an entrepreneur, right, is that they just were afraid to do the thing that made no sense to the majority of the world. Right? So if people can't conceptualize it, but you feel like that's the thing, well, then you're on the right track. You're doing the thing that everyone else is afraid to be doing, and no one else has done it before, so you can't do it wrong. That's the other thing, is whatever you're doing, you can't really do it wrong. You can only do it as you want to do it. You're not following a set of directions on how to start a company or how to go into the biomechanical analytic market. There's not directions on that, but people can look at how other people did it and then do the same thing and try to change it up a little bit to get potentially more funding than that company did. What if you just went a whole step further, looked at how the whole market acted, and then looked at another market that's up and coming and been like, wow, look at that connection. And then created some software or whatever it is, or piece of technology or innovation to bridge this communication gap between two markets who never thought they could talk before. And that's essentially all you need to do, and you can receive funding, you can receive, you can become innovative, you can do all these things, you can learn how to public speak. I didn't really do too much public speaking before this. I talked at my graduation in high school, and I never promised myself I'd do that again. That sucked. But, but like here I am doing this. And if you overthink it and you don't follow the thing that you feel like is right, or you overthink everything that you want to be doing, you're never going to actually do it, and you're going to give yourself a reason why not to do it, or take that estimated risk or that calculated risk. But if you just remove risk and thought about what you want to do as a person, maybe where you want to be in life, everyone wants to be rich, everyone wants to do like something really cool and make like this big impact. Well, then just do it, and do it some way that no one else would think about doing it. And it sounds way more harder than it is, but I came from a background of, my household income with my parents was less than $50,000, not very rich, upstate New York, very median, lifestyle. And I was very, just another fly on the wall in high school. I didn't do anything crazy. The only reason I spoke at graduation is because I wanted to be able to skip class because I was the vice president. So and that worked. So I never came from this crazy background. And people say, you have friends and family funding, or you do the grants, and then you do friends and family, and then you do a seed round. Well, I didn't have any friends and family to go fund anything. I had some guys that I was friends with in high school who are doing the same thing that a lot of people do when they graduate college. Do 9 to 5, get some experience with the next thing. I didn't have a lot of those connections, so I wasn't able to call up my uncle and be like, hey man, I came up with an idea. Would you be interested in investing? No, and no one on my team had that same experience. I have one of the team members who's probably the most qualified person to be doing anything, worked at a trailer park for 2 years because he couldn't find a job out of college. And he had 3 patents and 4 publications when he finished his master's, and he couldn't get a median wage job in biomedical engineering. So he worked at a trailer park. And he's on my team, and he's the most valuable asset I could have ever imagined, or the greatest person I've ever met in my life. It doesn't matter where you came from, and you can come up with excuses of why you're not doing the thing, or what is next. But I was super average up until 10 months ago, and then all of a sudden people started asking me for a job, and I was like, I literally have $2,000 in my bank account. What do you want from me? And it all happened really quickly. And the only reason why I did it is I never really want to do the normal thing, I guess. I've always been a little bit different than the rest of the people in the world. And I've always thought about things a little bit differently, or, I was called once a creative, critical problem solver. So I like to think that could be a good idea for me to have in my brain at all times. But it's not something that's bigger than you think. I talked to some athletes a couple months ago. So I was an athlete at UMaine, and I had the opportunity to give a keynote speech to all the athletes at their senior Scholar Athlete Award ceremony. That was super rewarding because I was the youngest person to ever do such a thing. There's never been a kid who just graduated do that. They usually bring either a professional athlete or somebody who did something really cool in business. So I'm going up there, and this is the first time all these 500 athletes have ever even seen me. I've did some things with swimming, and I was known as oh yeah, he's on the swim team, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, Justin Hafner is coming up to do this, and everyone just looked back at me, and I'm sitting in the crowd with them, and I was like, yep, here we go. This is gonna go well. And all I said is the things we learned as an athlete are, set a goal, achieve it, performance, just try to be the best version of yourself as an athlete, constantly improving, doing anything you can to do the next cool thing. And I'm telling these people this, and I'm talking to them, and I realized during this middle of the speech is, I remember I put the post on video, but there's a spot where it was 20 seconds of me just sitting there. I looked up to the crowd, 400 people, looked at the live stream, 700 people on that. I was like, okay, what am I actually doing? This is completely nerve-wracking. So I sat there for 20 seconds, nothing. Didn't say a single word for 20 seconds in front of 1,200 people. And then I realized I was and then all of a sudden I was I did nothing that like no one in this room could not do. I took all the simple ideas I've been taught my entire life as an athlete, as a student, and applied it to my life. I didn't just do it, as like, all right, my goal is to go this time in swimming, and that's it. And then once I do the goal, like I achieved it. No, I just like took the idea of setting a goal, and then took this idea of training really hard and all this resilience, took this idea that academics teach you about like learning and really taking on your education. I just applied all the most broadest and basic of topics to become where I am, and I'm not anywhere that's like amazing and successful. Like I'm not like their company's not even 10 months old, and we haven't made our first sale yet. But we have potential in the next 4 months to do something much bigger than any of us ever anticipated when we started this. But again, you take all these basic concepts you're taught throughout your entire life, and if you can apply it to something bigger than yourself, the only person that's going to be in your way is yourself, time and time again. And you can debate with me all day about it, but it's all going to come back on the people you surrounded yourself with, the way that you looked at goals, the way that you thought about processes or thought about problem solving. It's really simple. We've been taught this since like 5th grade, how to like do simple things. And I just did a simple thing in a way that apparently people couldn't fathom, but it's totally simple. It's looking at this situation from a totally different perspective, getting opinions from people across multiple markets, surrounding myself with this multidisciplinary team from bioengineers, to marketeers, right? Like people who really never really talked in the middle of school. And then because of that, we're all able to build off our intelligence and build off our strengths. And everyone on my team is smarter than I am. People say that I'm this genius, but no, I just like surrounded myself with people that are smarter than me, and because of that, we're able to do really cool things that matter. And at the end of the day, like, our team has said it like a million times, like, we just want to do cool shit that matters, right? That's it. At the end of the day, and we could have 500 pivots and be called a failure and do all these things awful. But at the end of the day, we did something that no one else could ever do. And the only people that are ever going to say that we're wrong is ourselves, because there's no one that's ever actually done it. So we can't be wrong at anything that we're doing. And we can fail time and time again because the society isn't used to something like this. This is something new. This is innovative. This is disruptive. This is tech. This is really exciting. And people embrace that differently. But all you have to do is have one goal in mind, or one thing that you live by, right? And my biggest thing is like I'm not afraid to mess up a million times, time and time again, because I know from each one of the times that I failed, I've learned from each one of those failures and have become the person that I am today. And if you can embrace failure, surround yourself with great people, and think about situations a little bit differently than what you've always been told to think about situations, you're never going to fail. And people are going to be able to come to you 2 months after you started a company and say, hey, can I have a job? And it's really that simple. And I'm not going to try to over explain anything. But it'd be great if you gave us a follow on Facebook. And thank you guys so much for having me. This is like super exciting, and like first tech talk, first time like being able to speak to people who can ask me like really like crazy intuitive questions that I may not even know how to answer. So like that's awesome. Thank you so much, and yeah, thank you.
We do have a few minutes for questions if folks would like. I guess I'll kick us off. Where do you see KinoTek within the next 5 years, say?
5 years. So I get asked this question a lot. And I always say, we're going to be across a couple different markets beyond just the sports. The reason why we're starting in sports is we can make some money to fund all of our future goals. And we're going to grow like we want to do an IPO or do something like really huge. And, we potentially could be acquired along the way, and, be happy to have any of those offers come in. That'd be really exciting. But 5 years from now, we're going to be in the state of Maine, doing some really cool stuff still, and basically testing out a bunch of different things to see what we can do next after we've integrated into all these different markets. Yeah.
Thank you again. This was an awesome tech talk.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you, in 5 years, will still be the state of the Really exciting. So you're talking about this amazing growth within just the 8 months, really. And so I'm wondering if you're starting to feel, a difference between what it was like when there was 4 people versus what it's like when there's 7 or 8, and how you've been able to deal with that. And as an operation, does it still feel like a really tight-knit startup? Does it start to feel different?
Yeah, no, yeah, totally, great question. So when there was 4 of us, we were trying to do the things we were really good at, but then also like 30 other different things that we had no idea we were doing. So we're trying to learn constantly. So now that we've grown, just 3 more people, we're able to have 3 more people who could do the things that we were trying to learn how to do. And we didn't necessarily do them bad, but it slowed us down. So having more people who have more expertise in the things that we didn't know, we're able to move 10 times faster. And working in that close niche environment, it may just be like where we're located. So we're located in a co-working space in Portland, Peloton Labs. And we're able to sit around the same table every day, and we just got an office there upstairs, so we'll all be in the same room. But we're able to just bounce ideas off each other and work on the same common goal all together, and just bounce ideas, talk about the next thing, what we're doing next, what our plan is 3 weeks down the line, what our plan is tomorrow. And so that close knit, it didn't vanish, and I'm super happy because I didn't know what to expect when more people started to come on. And I feel like it comes down to company culture and what your values are. So the people we bring in had the same kind of idea of like, I was in academics for a long time, and maybe it didn't work out or whatever. So we all have this like same core values of where we feel and where we're going and what we want to do, and that's why it's still a close-knit group. So if you can surround yourself and maintain your company values when you're hiring out people, I think you'll never lose that feeling of this first startup within a week of your founding. Yeah.
How hard or how easy was it to actually make that first contact at sports level? So I'm assuming you're talking like semi-professional or actually professional
Yeah.
teams. And what's that interaction like? Is
Yeah.
there a crazy story that you found someone who knew someone?
Yeah. So Techstars. So when we were in Techstars, when you make it to the top 20, you get to pitch in front of a boardroom with a net worth of $9.8 billion. So the people in that room were the owner of the Indianapolis Colts, owner of the Pacers, owner of Indiana Motor Speedway, COO of the NCAA, this guy that owns a basketball thing in Australia that I forget the name, and a bunch of venture capitalists. So we're able to pitch in front of this boardroom. Going into this, we like, all right, we're on a video screen. We can't really like interact with people. We don't know how they're reading us. We can't just read the audience and go with your pitch based off that. So I just wung it. And we were all sitting around this table with like this little laptop. We're all like huddled up next to each other, and we're all pitching and like introducing ourselves. And it was super awkward for like 15 minutes. And they're like, all right, see you later. And then they just were like, all right, your time's up. Great, we'll talk to you later. And then they hung up the phone. We're like, all right, well, that's what it is. And so then 2 weeks went by, and we get the notice that we didn't make it, due to the lack of experience. Next year we'd be a great candidate, like the simple stuff that you would get when you don't make it into a thing. And so we get this experience. But the guy that made the final decision was the guy that I talked to in New York City. And he was, he's from Bowdoin. He's like, hey, do you want me to introduce you to the Colts? Do you want me to introduce you to the Pacers? And I was like, yes. Yeah, like that's a win. I don't need an investment to say this was a success. So we were able to be introduced to the Pacers and the Colts. And from that, they talked to their friends. And in sports, everyone's trying to do like the next thing and always get the next new tech. And they talked to the other sports teams to make sure that, someone else didn't already adopt this, or if they did, what was it like? Because it's really funny, like they'll find out that one of their buddies got it, and they'll ask them, how'd you do this? And the people that were like, oh, I'm never going to tell anyone that I have this tech that can make a difference, but then they tell everyone because they're bragging about it, and then everyone else has the same tech, and then 2 years later, a new piece of technology comes down around, it's the same thing. So they're spreading this word, and then all of a sudden, one of my friend's dads, his buddy is his name is Lee Taft. So he is he's the guy who has to certify all the other sports performance coaches in the entire like United States. Like they can't be a strength and conditioning coach, you know, without his like certification. So he was just like, Lee Taft was like, hey, I'm super interested. Like this is great. This is really cool. And so they started reaching out to their sports contacts. And then a week went by, and all of a sudden, my advisor was like, hey, I'm going to forward you a bunch of emails. And get ready. And it was like 15 professional sports organizations, different sports performance coaches, hockey, you know, NFL, MLB, NBA, messaging, you know, this guy talking about, like asking all these questions. And we were able to look at all these questions, and that was our customer discovery. We didn't even have to have, you know, the stakeholder interviews. We had like all this customer discovery right here. It's like, wow, 10 of them asked the same question. Clearly that's not being solved. So we're able to like put that feature into our tech. And so we have 15 pro teams, and hopefully counting, that are talking about us, that have followed us on Instagram, Facebook. So they're constantly up to date, and they're still in conversation with us. And we just got asked, I won't say the team, but to go down to do a demo for a professional hockey team in a couple weeks. So yeah, it just kind of was a natural like synergistic like conversation, and everything just fell in the right place at the right time. And we were able to, it wasn't luck, I don't believe in luck. We were just able to be prepared at the right time that we needed to be prepared for. Yeah.
Well, did you? Well, thank you so much to Justin.
Yeah.
You know, such a wonderful story about entrepreneurship, and even better hearing about this innovation coming out of the state of Maine. So thank you for the great work. Look forward to following the company in the future years. So join me in thanking KinoTek for Justin. Thank you all for joining. Make sure to stop by Bricks just about any day of the week. You can find us on Facebook or on centralmaine.org/technight. We look forward to seeing you next month. And of course, thank you to our sponsors. Cheers. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.